Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 146. So I got home from Santa Fe a little bit ago, a few hours ago this afternoon, and I've been just hanging out, relaxing a little bit, trying to let everything settle in, going through my notes, putting things in order, figuring out how I'm going to, write it up, etc., etc. So over the weekend, I'm going to compile everything and then figure by Monday, Tuesday, the latest, I'll have everything down into words. And like I said, I'll put it on like Medium or something like that. That way you folks can get an idea of some of the inner speak that was going on in my mind during the time that I was there. I took a lot of, I had my voice recorder going as I was driving there, kind of conveying my thoughts as I was approaching the ranch. And like I said, the vastness of it was almost overwhelming. If I wasn't used to such vast spaces out here in the Southwest, being that I live in Las Vegas and in the middle of the Mojave Desert, etc., I'm used to those kind of vast spaces where it's just nothing around for miles and miles and miles. And that was the ranch. Like I was telling you last night, it's nestled in an area where there's no way that there's any sort of public scrutiny ever going to occur. Even getting there is, from Santa Fe, you're driving through, nothing, places where you don't even really have phone service. So once you get out there and you pull up to the front and you're at the gate, you see all of the cameras, et cetera, et cetera. Then off in the distance, you see a housing complex, a residential complex. And, as I pulled up and I was looking at all of this, all that was crossing my mind was how much more secluded could you possibly be? I mean, I don't know of another place where he could have chosen that could have been that secluded. And even like the closest city, Santa Fe, is not exactly what you would call a pop and hub for a bunch of billionaires from New York or Florida. There's really not much going on down there. You have like Old Town and, unless you're down there to buy some turquoise or maybe to have some drinks or something like that, I don't really see what the draw could be for Santa Fe. Until you look at all the other things we've talked about, the politicians, the location, the secrecy, the privacy of it all. And then everything starts to come into focus and you say, oh, well, I see exactly why he chose a place such as Santa Fe. And, even though I maximized my time there and I got a whole bunch accomplished, I'm already planning another trip back. And like I talked about last night, I would love to do some sort of documentary. What I did figure out while I was on this trip is it's a lot. It's hard work to try and do all of this stuff yourself when you're on location, like getting proper video. I'm trying to drive at the same time. I don't want to crash. I don't know where I'm going really. So, there was a lot of things that came into it that I've learned on this first trip that I'll put into practice next time around and make it even more of a, productive, polished adventure, hopefully, meaning some more media produced. But I'll tell you, the drive there was probably, as I was pulling up and all the thoughts that were running through my mind about how people could just be so blasé about what's going on when the whole entire town, pretty much everybody I talked to in Santa Fe, anybody I brought it up to was like, oh yeah, we definitely know that guy was a sicko. Everybody here knew what was going on up there, but nobody ever wanted to do anything. And that seems to be the prevailing thought amongst those that I spoke with that live in Santa Fe, work in Santa Fe, work around Santa Fe. And it's crazy to think that this guy got away with it for so long. And for it's if you saw the ranch and the desolation around it, you would know what I mean about these people from New York, these snooty ass people from New York going out there. They have no desire to go to flyover states. There has to be a serious draw to bring these people over to the flyover states, right? The only reason we get people here in Nevada is because of Las Vegas. Now, you got all of these rich, high-profile people that could go anywhere in the world, be with anybody they want to be with, but yet they're in this desolate, middle of nowhere, pretty much compound, doing Lord knows what. I mean, well, we know, but, you're saying to yourself, if you're looking at it from the outside, right? You said, well, why the hell would these people be in New Mexico? Why would Jeffrey Epstein build a place in New Mexico? He could build anywhere in the whole entire world. And then everything falls into place. You know, the Gelman connection, the Santa Fe Institute, the Alamitos complex that's not too far away. I forget the name right now, but it's like another science complex where they do research into, like, you know, infectious disease and all kinds of crazy stuff I had no idea about. And it's just the picture, it paints a very disturbing picture when you look at everything together. So I'll go over more of this. Like I said, probably Sunday I'm thinking about doing maybe an all-encompassing show about the whole trip, like a complete roundup, maybe sit down for like 45 minutes and go through it point by point. Maybe Sunday or Monday, do something like that. But for tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to jump right back into our usual daily drop routine. And since I was late on the draw today and didn't get a morning update in, what we're going to do is we're going to have, we'll do 2 articles tonight. And one of them's about the quote-unquote investigation that was done into the Wexner Foundation. And the other one is the article that I wanted to cover last night, but I got way too long-winded. The one about Ghislaine Maxwell catching a victory in court with in regards to documents being released. So we're going to start off with the Les Wexner article, and this is from the Columbus Dispatch. The author is Mark Williams. The headline: Epstein had no day-to-day role in Wexner Foundation report finds. Well, folks, you heard it here. We've heard from the investigators. The outside organization with no ties to the Wexners have told us that there was nothing of concern going on with Jeffrey Epstein. That Jeffrey Epstein had no big role within the Wexner Foundation. And we all know that that's BS, right? We know that you don't give your financial reins over to somebody and they're not going to have a role in your foundation as well. Come on. Maybe it wasn't an upfront role. Maybe it wasn't a role where he was in the meetings every day. But to think, it is just so naive for people to think that Jeffrey Epstein wasn't involved up to his chin with whatever Wexner was doing. I mean, come on. We've seen the pattern so far. We've seen what Wexner has provided for Epstein. We've seen how Epstein has exploited that relationship. You know what? I won't even say exploited, because that makes Wexner out to be a victim. No, not exploited, but how he used that relationship, right? Used it as a vehicle to have access to places like Victoria's Secret. And then we all know all of their other ties. I mean, Wexner and Epstein. Wexner is totally a huge part of everything that went on, in my opinion. Obviously, I can't tie him directly to it. I don't have that evidence. I'm not going to sit here and make pretend I do, and I don't speak in absolutes unless we have evidence. So from what we've seen so far, though, right, the evidence that we've seen, or the stuff that we've seen that ties them all together, and you start doing the detective work, well, it's very obvious. It is very, very obvious from the evidence that's available to us, should I say. I shouldn't say we don't have the evidence, but the evidence that's available to us, everything that's been put out in the media, everything that we've uncovered, all the little breadcrumb trails that we followed, it all leads back to the same place. Wexner, Epstein, and Maxwell. Those 3 were very, 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 very much connected at the hip. Maybe not so much Maxwell hanging out with Wexner or whatever like that, but Maxwell through Epstein, and then Epstein was, him and Wexner were thick as thieves. So, anyway, to the article. Accused child sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein was a longtime trustee on Leslie H. Wexner's foundation focused on Jewish education and leadership. But a report commissioned by the Wexner Foundation found that Epstein was involved in name only, as if that makes it any better. In name only, what could Epstein's name bring to the foundation that a man like Les Wexner's name could not? It's not about being name only. Epstein was a shadow partner, and I'll go out on a limb here. I don't have evidence of this, but like all of these other operations, it sure looks like this was used as a money laundering operation to me. This sure looks like an operation where they were trying to hide their ill-gotten gains by, once again, under the banner of charity. And it's over and over and over we've seen this, folks. And eventually one of these prosecutors is actually going to do some work here and tie this all together. And these people are going to be in big trouble. If a prosecutor shows up with a big set that wants to be a real cowboy or a cowgirl and go after these folks, the evidence is all right there. The question is, why have they not gone after them? He did not participate in the foundation's day-to-day activities or set policy, according to a report released Wednesday. Well, that's it. They're exonerated. Epstein wasn't setting policy. I mean, so that obviously means that he had no role, right? He had no background role, but he was never in the office. Yeah, well, Tony Soprano very rarely was in the waste management office either, all right? Look, these people are criminals, okay? In my opinion, these people are criminals. We know for a fact that Epstein's a criminal. In my opinion, Wexner's certainly a criminal as well. So to think that there was no backroom nonsense going on here, especially if it's a money laundering operation, is very naive at best. And Wexner Foundation leaders and staff members said they didn't recall seeing Epstein at the Foundation's offices or attending Foundation events, the report said. Yeah, because these people aren't in fear of their jobs, their careers, their six-figure incomes or anything. They're just going to go ahead and rat out their bosses, very powerful people like the Wexners, and they're just going to go ahead and be very open and honest. I'll tell you what, why don't you get them under oath? Let's get all of these people under oath with the threat of perjury hanging over their heads, and then we'll see how truthful and how much I believe what they have to say. The review represents what is widely regarded as best practice in cases like this and is part of our ongoing effort to be transparent and appropriately responsive, Rabbi B. Elka Abramson, the Foundation's president, wrote on its website. Completing this work in a thorough fashion required time. It's such a joke. It's such a joke when you see companies do this. And I don't just mean in this situation, but anytime these people are like, oh, we're going to investigate ourselves. We have an outside company doing it. It's like the Justice Department and that knucklehead Barr. Oh, we're going to investigate the prison system. Yeah, okay, because you're a reliable player in all of this, pal. Because we can trust you. I mean, come on. I don't trust any of these liars. These people are all up there rattling off nonsense, talking BS, and they act like we're just going to listen to their narrative. Well, we're not going to just listen to your narrative anymore, okay? We're not going to believe your internal investigations either. All right? There needs to be independent oversight. When there's none of it. And we can't count on the Senate. We can't count on Congress. They're way too busy playing tribalistic games. They're way too busy clobbering each other over the head with, oh, well, this policy went south or that policy went south. And it's just an absolute and utter shit show. There's nobody at the helm, and we're just cruising through the ocean right now, and it's no big deal. Who cares if there's a reef coming up and we're about to bottom out? No big deal. Everything will work out. The review was commissioned by the Foundation after news accounts detailing the once close and long relationship between Wexner, the founder of L Brands, and Epstein, and concern among some of those who benefited from the Foundation's work that Epstein's funds might have gone to the Foundation. Look, folks, I'm not trying to demean the work that the Foundation does, right, or is supposed to do. What my problem is and what I'm skeptical of is that how can we trust Wexner and Epstein and all of these other scuzzballs that are running around in the banking system and as the oligarchs of these companies? How can we trust them to be honest with us when we have evidence that they're never honest? And then they try and come across as, well, we're being very fair. We're going to look into ourselves, and it's all to save face. Over in China, it's like really big. Face is like really big, right? Like they'll do anything to save face. And that's what this reminds me of. It's like the the Chinese Communist Party of China trying to save face. It's the same thing with these foundations. And they have no clue that we're seeing right through their BS. L Brands, Operator of Bath and Body Works and Victoria's Secret is undergoing a similar review. Oh, I can't wait to see that. I mean, I wonder who's doing the review. Maybe Ghislaine Maxwell's nephew will do the review. Maybe Alex DeRossi will do the review, because, that's an independent source as well. Epstein was Wexner's financial manager for years, and in 1998 was identified as president, along with Wexner, of the New Albany Company in Ohio Business Records. He owned property in the New Albany development. Where do you think he got that property, folks? Do you think Epstein came out of his own pocket and broke out some fazools and purchased that property? Or do you think that property was gifted to him in one way or the other by his benefactor here, good old Les Wexner? I'll leave that up to you to decide. At one time, Wexner gave Epstein power of attorney and great latitude to use it. Read between the lines here, folks. Even to me, it looks like the person who wrote the article doesn't believe it either, right? At one time, Wexner gave Epstein power of attorney and great latitude to use it, meaning that Epstein was able to do whatever he wanted pretty much, could wield that power however he wanted to, and all was well. And Wexner never had any questions about it. For all those years, no questions. Then Jeffrey Epstein gets caught up, and all of a sudden, Wexner is washing his hands of him. Meanwhile, anybody who knows who the mega group is, and I would hope that everybody listening to this podcast does by now, knows that Wexner is a lot more than just a benefactor. Epstein, 66, killed himself, allegedly, last August while awaiting trial on charges that he sexually exploited and abused dozens of underage girls between 2002 and 2005. Epstein previously pleaded guilty in 2008 in Florida to state charges of soliciting a minor for prostitution. I don't even understand, again, soliciting a minor for prostitution. How can a minor be a prostitute? What a ridiculous law that was. I know I keep saying this, but it's so insane to me to think that in the year 2020, 2018, 2019, that there's laws like that where we're calling children, minors, prostitutes. Charges of soliciting a minor for prostitution, ending a case that began with a 53-page federal indictment that could have resulted in a lengthy prison sentence. No, not could have, would have. He was definitely going down this time. His handlers abandoned him at this point. They realized that the asset was burned. And what do you do when you have a burned asset? Well, you get rid of it, right? Wash your hands clean of it and move on. Wexner has said previously that he severed his relationship with Epstein more than a decade ago, and that he was unaware of Epstein's alleged crimes. Epstein served as foundation trustee from 1992 to 2007, but did not contribute any money to it, the report found. Yeah, any money in his name. I mean, come on, this is just, they really expect us to believe this? Do they really expect us to believe this? I know I don't believe it, and I'll find it highly unlikely that any of the listeners out there believe any of this as well. Considering the emails I've received from you about Wexner, folks, I highly doubt you're buying this quote-unquote independent review. The foundation said it employed the law firm of Kegler Brown, a firm that had not been used before by the foundation or the Wexner family. I'm sure they had no ties. I'm sure that if we do a deep dig into this, there were no ties between Kegler and Brown. Zero. I mean, I'm sure that it's just a relationship. They just opened the phone book, and they were going through the phone book, and they were like, all right, we got to find a law firm, come in, and they're going to do this. We really want to get to the bottom of this. And I guess Saul Goodman wasn't available, so they called Kegler and Brown. The firm said it reviewed thousands of pages of documents, including tax filings by the foundation and Epstein's foundation, along with criminal documents against Epstein. Well, that's fine. You could review whatever documents you want, pages of documents. Who provided you those documents? Oh, that's Wexner did. Okay? And just, again, because Epstein, what name wasn't on this stuff, or these foundations weren't on it, who did he use as a surrogate? Who did he use as a vessel to provide this money? See, where are the forensic accountants? Why aren't there a team of forensic accountants tracing all of this stuff down? I'm talking about an independent forensic team tracing this down. From our review, the foundation was not of any particular interest to Epstein, and the people we interviewed who met Epstein described him as showing no interest in charity or the foundation. The report said, oh yeah, right, Jeffrey Epstein had no interest in charity, folks. He had zero interest in it. He never gave money away to people that he was trying to finesse. He would never, ever do that. Give me a break. Is this for real right now? So I'm waiting for the punchline now. The report also included a review of 1,500 pages of criminal documents and those tied to a lawsuit against Epstein. The review found no evidence that Epstein used the foundation to commit sexual assault or other crimes. Well, maybe the review should have looked into what Les Wexner and his wife, Abigail Wexner, facilitated on his New Albany property when Maria Farmer was assaulted by his buddy Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Why don't they look into that? Separately, the report looked at another Wexner-related foundation set up in 2007 that received $47 million from Epstein. That entity, called the YLK Foundation and run by Wexner's wife Abigail, was closed in 2010 according to a dispatch accounting of the foundation last summer. Yet again, so anybody going to look into that money or what? I mean, the IRS is busy, auditing everybody under the sun, but people like Wexner and his wife Abigail and this mysterious $47 million, oh, no big deal. Come on. How dare you? How dare you, peasant? Leslie Wexner said in a letter last summer to the Wexner Foundation that the $47 million represented money that Epstein had stolen from the Wexner family. I really do not. I don't buy any of this. This is their cover story. Here's my opinion how the scenario went down, okay? You ready? So, Epstein was burned, right? And to provide cover for Wexner, he had to give this money back, so when the time came, Wexner could point at this money being deposited back into his account by Epstein and say, look, he stole from me too. How can I be culpable for what occurred? I was a victim. And that is how smarmy these sons of bitches are. And I'm sorry if that sounds cynical, but if you think these people are playing checkers, think again. They're all playing chess. Abramson, the Wexner Foundation president, said on the website that he asked Abigail Wexner why legal action wasn't taken against Epstein. And, boy, this is a goofy excuse. She explained that given the financial discoveries and what the Wexners were learning about the allegations of sexual misconduct against Epstein being raised in Florida, the Wexners concluded it was in the best interest of their family to avoid ongoing litigation entanglements and to terminate all association with Epstein immediately. So he supposedly stole $46 million from you, $47 million from you. It was never reported to the FBI. It was never reported to the authorities. And then when asked by the president of this foundation, that they own, by the way, why it wasn't reported, it was because they didn't want to have any entanglements because of Epstein's ongoing case. What sort of excuse is that? Abigail Wexner is a repugnant human being, in my opinion. I mean, that's no excuse. How can you... And furthermore, shouldn't the authorities look into this story, right, to see if this money was truly stolen? I mean, there's just so much BS here, and Wexner continuously gets away with it. The King of Columbus continuously gets away with all of this BS, and up until recently, nobody was calling him out, and nobody was, really holding him to account. And now we see that, he's finished at L Brands and at Victoria's Secret as the CEO. And it's funny that this report just happens to drop right as he steps down, huh? Just as he needs a little bit of, a little bit of a boost in the public eye, this story happens to drop. It's not a coincidence, folks, all right? Coincidence. All right, our next article is from Law and Crime, and the author is Colin Kalmbacher. Headline: Judge rules for Ghislaine Maxwell in huge setback to victims and boon to Epstein accomplices. This article, I didn't read this exact article yet, but I know the story, obviously. I wanted to read it last night, and it agitates me. This kind of story agitates me. This judge is just ridiculous. These judges, They act like they're trying to protect the judicial system, when in reality they're just, they're acting like cowboys and cowgirls from the bench, and half of them are activist judges anyway. The other half just, they don't really give a shit about anything. The whole entire justice system is completely screwed, and I have zero faith in it at all. A federal judge in Manhattan has denied a media request to presume that the public should have access to an infamous and long-sought trove of documents related to dead pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. In a terse 4-page ruling, Judge Loretta Preska ruled against reporter Julie K. Brown and the Miami Herald in what's sure to be seen as a slap in the face to the dozens of survivors ensnared by Epstein's elite pedophile ring over the course of several years. Hell yeah, it's a slap in the face. This judge should be ashamed, right? I wanted to give Preska the benefit of the doubt, and I wanted to think that she was going to do the right thing, but it's kind of disheartening to see that the legal system continues to cover up for people like Epstein, and they use stupid, ridiculous loopholes that, guess who wrote? Oh, they're friends that were enabling Epstein anyway. These people write the laws so that they know how to break them correctly. That's what I'm convinced of. Brown and the Herald's argument is ostensibly that the unsealing process requires the court to evaluate the Aristotelian essence of a document, i.e., to decide that certain documents are imbued with an inherent free-floating power to influence judicial decision making that makes them necessarily subject to the presumption of public access, Preska wrote in a sharp and mocking decision. Oh, look at how she's such a wordsmith. Judge Preska is just so much more intelligent than the rest of us. Just look at the way she wrote a sharp and mocking decision. Give me a break, these judges. They take themselves way too seriously. The court has already considered and rejected the exact contention Brown and the Herald advance here. The judicial documents can be categorized as such based on their abstract, generalized effect on judicial decisions rather than in the context of a decided motion. So, basically she's saying, look, we've already heard all of these arguments in the previous case. You're bringing the same exact arguments to me, and this is nonsense. I'm obviously not gonna pass this ruling in your favor, considering you haven't shown me anything new. That's Preska's argument here. That Brown and the Herald have found alternative dress for that position does not provide grounds for reconsideration. And that was what Preska said the first time around, that they're going to need to bring something new to the table. And obviously, the legal team for Julie K. Brown and the Herald were not able to do that in a convincing manner in the eyes of Miss Preska here. Preska previously made more or less the same decision, drastically limiting the number of documents that could be released from the court proceedings between Epstein victim Virginia Roberts and Epstein's friend and alleged groomer. Alleged groomer? How about co-conspirator? How about abuser? How about all-around sick human being? Ghislaine Maxwell. Those thousands of documents are believed to contain lurid details about various world leaders and other high-profile individuals who allegedly engaged in the systematic rape of underage girls on Epstein's private jet and island, the Lolita Express and Little James, respectively. I don't even like the name of that, the Lolita Express. I don't even like the connotation. So from now on, we're going to call it the something else. I haven't figured it out yet, but something else. Various claims of sexual abuse and coercion were made against those elites in the documents, which also contained some denials from those same powerful men. And this is what it all comes down to in my opinion. And again, I might just be skeptical of the judicial system to a point where I jump the gun almost at this point and think that everything they do is just devious and works against the will of the people. But obviously, with all of these high-profile MFs involved in this, do you really think they're not exerting pressure? Maybe not, showing up at somebody's house dressed in a ninja suit from the Gambino crime family, but exerting pressure through backroom channels. We've seen the way Dershowitz does it. Do you really think that all of these people aren't trying to finesse their way out of these documents being released? And I'm not saying that Preska is, somebody who can be intimidated or whatever, but there are, ways that this can be finagled. What about her boss? What about who she answers to? What about, who knows? But all I can tell you is this. We have a pattern of these people getting away with their disgusting crimes and their disgusting actions that goes back decades. And eventually somebody's going to have to stand up. Somebody like Preska is going to have to stand up and say enough is enough. The court battle was largely fought over what the judge determined were so-called judicial documents. Per orders handed down by a federal appeals court last year, motions previously ruled on by U.S. District Court Judge Robert Sweet definitely qualified as such documents and were given the presumption of public access, meaning they would be released. Preska spent months considering whether to broaden the pool of documents which would ultimately be released to the public. She requested filings from the plaintiffs, the defendants, and from interested third parties such as the media, victims, and transparency advocates. So all of these people provided her with their opinions, their thoughts, I'm sure very good reasons, as we've heard, for this stuff to be released, and still Preska decided that it was not something the public needed to know. So this one lady, this one woman, as intelligent as she might be, or as, as successful as she might be at her job, this one woman decides what the public should or should not see when it comes to something as disgusting and as gross as what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein. She thinks it's okay that the public does not see that. So I hope that Miss Preska, whenever it's time to be voted in again, or however, whatever situation she's involved in, I hope that the public remembers that. With respect to motions left undecided by Judge Sweet, Preska noted earlier this year, there was never, and now never can be, a judicial decision-making process that would trigger the public's right to access the undecided motions and the documents relevant to them. But that's not quite the end of it. Preska said that some documents might yet see the light on a case-by-case basis. Brown was upset about today's judge-authored setback. The fight for the truth continues, she said. You can read the full ruling below, and it's one of those scribed full, the actual full briefing. So when you go and you click on the article, when you get to the very bottom of it, you can read the entire thing that Preska put out. So here we are, folks, again. Setbacks, but they're expected in this case. We know this isn't going to be easy. We know taking down powerful people like this isn't easy. We know that it's going to be a long road for the survivors to get the justice that they deserve, and for the American and the world public to see that the justice system actually does do the right thing and does go after everybody equally. But we need some people in the positions of people like Judge Preska to do the right thing here and to really think about how the court should be transparent and how the court needs to answer to the people. At the end of the day, everybody must answer to the people in a free society. The people have the power, not these stupid judges, not these courts, not these politicians. Now, sure, they have the power. The judge has the power to, enforce the law and sentence you and all of that jazz. There's no doubt. Congress has the power to write the laws, but we send them into their positions. We're the ones who vote for them to go to these prestigious places and control our lives. And then once they get there, well, forget the people that voted for them. Forget what they stood for. They get completely tainted. They get caught up with the K Street nonsense. And all of a sudden, before you know it, they're locked in and they're just trying to increase their own wealth and their own power. And that's what it looks like to me here. It looks like Preska had a chance to really step up to the plate here and at the very least release documents. But no, of course, she wants to make it a big battle, and I hope that the lawyers appeal this and go high above her head, and hopefully it lands on a judge's desk who actually wants some transparency in this country and realizes that these names are, they should be for public consumption. These people are still amongst us. These people are still in some cases in positions of power. So you don't think it's important that the public has an idea of those who would rule above us? I think it's pretty important, folks. And it's unfortunate that Preska thinks otherwise. And hopefully we see an appeal here and they kick it up to a higher chain and we get some movement. But until then, the fight goes on. You know, this is what happens in a war. You might lose a couple of battles, but you have to just keep on plugging away because you have to look at the bigger picture and realize that there's a whole entire war still to be fought. And that's where we find ourselves. We're in the middle of a huge battle for justice and for transparency and for people to be held accountable. These people that are supposed to be, you know, minding the candy store have their hands in the candy jar. And enough is enough. And I know it's not just me from all of the emails and then from the downloads and from just talking to you folks. I know it's not just me. Everybody's fired up. And it doesn't matter if you're a Bernie supporter or a Trump supporter. One thing that they agree on is that the system is completely and utterly screwed up, the Justice Department, and it needs to be corrected. And hopefully we take the steps and we get people in these positions that really are about transparency. And what are the chances of that happening? Not very good, I'm guessing. But all it takes is one, right? All it takes is one whistleblower or one person with courage like Edward Snowden, and we're having a whole different conversation. So until then, we're going to be right here on the Jeffrey Epstein Show, plugging away, bringing you the news, breaking it down, and whenever we can get out onto scene like we did in Santa Fe and show up on site and do some investigation on the ground, we're going to do that as well. So I'm going to try and get another trip into Santa Fe, hopefully soon, next few months. And what I'd like to do is have somebody come with me and have somebody take care of the filming and all of that jazz so I can actually focus on the other stuff as opposed to the technical stuff. So I'm going to try and get that all set up, and I'm going to see where it goes. And, you know, we're going to keep investigating, and we're going to keep going here, and we're going to keep gnawing at this bone until we find out the truth. Until these people are held accountable, until people are actually held accountable for what occurred, we're going to keep plugging away right here on the Jeffrey Epstein Show. All right, everybody, if you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. If you enjoy my work and you would like to help support the podcast, you can do that by clicking on the GoFundMe link inside of the description box. All right, I'll be back tomorrow morning for our usual morning update and daily drop. If there's anything in the afternoon that I feel like I should pop on and talk about, we'll do that. Some breaking news. If anything, moves, we'll do that. But if not, expect the 2 episodes. And like I said, over the weekend, as I compile my notes more and get everything more organized, we'll have a more encompassing show, kind of like I did last night about Zorro Ranch, and we'll just go over each step of the trip. And like I said, Sunday, Monday, I'm looking to do something like that. So until then, folks, I will talk to you in the morning.